Okay, hi everyone. I'm Melissa Williams Murphy. I'm the founder of the iWRITE nonprofit organization, and we hope that all of you out there are doing well, staying safe. I have the pleasure of being virtually joined here today by Ibrahim Firat, the Chief Educational Consultant of Firat Education. He also happens to be a dear friend of mine, a past board member at the iWRITE nonprofit, and for many years an educational partner. So I just have to thank you, Ibrahim, for being here as we dive into a topic that has been weighing heavy on the minds of many students and many parents out there.
Hi, Melissa. Thanks for having me. These are definitely hard times for everyone, but like I always tell my students, every difficult time comes with an abundance of opportunities. So this is especially true for our high school students who are confined to home.
Definitely. And I mean, considering this topic of conversation, if anybody knows high schoolers well, Ibrahim, it is you. I mean, this is how I see you. I see you as the voice for this cohort of young adults. So that's what we're going to be talking about, what's going on in the midst of the coronavirus and how their story is basically changing before their eyes as the story of the world is changing. We're all in it. Before we really dive into that, I do want to make sure that our viewers all at home just know a little bit more about both organizations, because iWRITE and Firat Education, we share some common values, especially when it comes to building student confidence through writing and education. So I would just love for everybody to hear a little bit more about you and Firat Education and what you all are doing out there for this group.
Absolutely. Thank you. And as a chief educational consultant at Firat Education, we were founded in 2008. So during the difficult times of the Great Recession. And we had one thing in mind, the students first motto. Most students came to us with concerns with their test scores, specifically with the SAT and ACT. And then we realized it's more like test anxiety that's tied to something bigger, something greater. So then we realized, okay, if we help students identify the best fit careers, career paths, majors, and then colleges for them, then they'll have a purpose attached to why they need to do at what point on the SAT and ACT. That automatically raises their confidence. And with the quality of work we can help them with in terms of the testing, in terms of the tutoring, college admissions counseling, then they can see the big picture and the small details that go into this. Slowly they built confidence, slowly they found their niche, and once they get the results, they're just so happy, and that all those concerns, all that anxiety just goes away after a while. So that's the purpose of why we started Firat Education. And having had the experience myself as an international student to apply to the colleges in the United States, it was tough. I felt it myself. And because of that, we founded Firat Education, and we've been in business for 12 years now with over 1,000 students we served, and 98% of our students get into their top 2 universities. And we are in 11 different cities around the country, and we're helping globally students around the world.
That is fantastic. I know you all have grown so much. We're just about the same age in organizations. We're 11 years old, so, or going on 11 years old at iWRITE. And I love the piece about building that student confidence, because that is really what it's all about. And at iWRITE, it's about kids and young adults being able to find their voice. As we all know that when you're able to write and communicate well, you immediately feel that elevation in confidence as you're able to speak your mind and to really get your thoughts out there. And we also know that writing, it's a therapeutic tool at the same time for our young group here. And right now, this generation, it's so important that they express themselves and they're expressing how they're feeling during this time, because we don't want that personal account of theirs to go unheard or go unnoticed. So I think we should really just dive into, some of the things that we're hearing from parents and students being in this area with high schoolers. I know the iWRITE Youth Club is full of middle school and high school young adults, and they all have been very eager to talk more about this topic and to write about it. So I want to just dive in because we will have time later for Q&A in about 30 minutes or so. But we have some high schoolers that have been just worried, and they want to know what to expect. And that's what this is for today. We really want to get some of those questions out there and hear from all of you. So one of our iWRITE Youth Club seniors, she stated that her class is worried about graduation and big senior events like prom getting canceled, and how they will ever get closure from all of this. And she says that she thinks that it's going to be hard to go straight from kind of an unfinished school semester straight into college without getting to say those true goodbyes or have that sense of closure. And when I think about this, I really do see this as a true loss for this group of kids, considering they've been looking forward to these rites of passage, right? And it feels like forever, 4 years of looking forward to this during their high school years, especially at that age. So naturally, there's going to be a grieving process. And I mean, I don't practice, but my background is counseling and psychology. And if there are any counselors listening, we would love to hear from you. But when you think about this, Ibrahim, this is sad, yet you and I were talking the other day about how empowering some of this is when you really start to dive into this cohort of students and what they've been going through. So I would love to hear you talk to that.
So it's interesting you mentioned the grieving process and kind of as a loss, of what's going on. And I don't really want to discount that. That is true. It is a loss. It's disappointing. It's, as many of our students say, it sucks that they cannot do this. But let's remember who this cohort is. Class of 2020 of high school was born during 9/11 times. They've gone through in 2008, the Great Recession times when they couldn't buy the toys they wanted, even probably was able to go to the school that they wanted to go to, or the vacation they wanted to take because of the Great Recession their families have gone through. And then came the Harvey during their high school years, or even middle school years in some cases, multiple disasters. And now it's not that much surprising that they're about to graduate with something like this, to be honest. They have gone through this. They are immune to what's happening today. So this is the group that I call the most resilient high school class probably our country has ever seen. We have not seen a high school class like this. Even I'm talking about like World War II times, World War I times. I'm thinking about a time, there's no such thing as in the 17 years they've gone through so much. So when I think about that, I don't see it as a loss. I don't see it as a disappointment. I see it as growth. They've grown so much. These students are going to become the leaders of tomorrow that can take us through any sort of obstacle they can because of their experience.
That is so true. I mean, they are going to be such powerhouses. Seriously. I mean, I think of it as anytime you've done something that seems really hard, just personally, and you can't believe you got through it. Like, let's just use, I remember running a marathon for the first time, and it was the only time.
Yep.
But after that feeling that you get, you think, wow, I can probably do something else that's really hard too. So they've been built for this, really. And I have to mention just, being a writing organization here, we can't help but bring up the story that they all are living. And I know that sometimes this group doesn't want to be told, you're living history right now, just, write about it, talk about it, but we really do have to think about the fact that this graduating class of 2020 is the only class who owns this story in their life. And it is something that deserves to be heard and told. And we want to make sure that this history doesn't go unforgotten from their own personal accounts, because this is different for each and every one of them. So this is something that we want to make sure this group knows at the iWRITE organization. We want to hear from you. Send us your thoughts, send us your work, send us your journaling. We don't want this story to go unheard. So that's just, one piece to so many layers of this, as I know we're going to continue to dive in to some of the concerns. We have another one from another high school, iWRITE youth club member, asking about the canceled graduations and makeup plans, since it's such a grand scale and there's so much that goes into graduation planning. Everybody's asking, are we going to get a graduation? Is there any way for us to receive a graduation? And I know you've been on the other end of hearing about this too. So
yeah, so this is going to be institution and district specific or private school specific if you're going to a private school. But most schools have gone through some sort of planning to make up the graduation somehow. Now, I know many of you don't want to hear the idea of virtual graduations, but that's one of the items that are being discussed as an option. The other option, and is probably going to be more prevalent for many schools as well, is making up the graduation in December or next year along with the new class that's going to be graduating. So colleges are implementing this, as well as high schools and districts are looking into making this happen as maybe multiple weekend day kind of thing, where you don't have to necessarily walk the stage with the class of 2021, but class of 2020 will get a separate day and a graduation maybe 1 week or 2 weeks apart from 2021.
right. And I know that you had sent me an article on some of the virtual proms that have already been held. Pretty sure one of the schools here in Houston held one, and one of the Astros crashed it. So you're starting to see, some fun things come of this.
Yeah, some creativity. And to be honest, if there's one generation that could really pull this off, it is this generation. It is this senior class. And you know what? They're having fun with it. That's the beauty of it. So they were still dressed up in this particular example that you're talking about. They were still dressed up. They still asked their prom dates. If, they didn't have one, they asked via, WhatsApp, and then they put it together on Zoom, and everybody connected and everybody had fun with live music and dancing and, had the most of it. So now that doesn't mean they're not going to have a real prom. They're probably going to get together again, but no other high school prom is going to look like that you have the virtual one as well as an in-person one. So that's, I think, to me, that story needs to be told somehow. And that's why you're bringing up the iWRITE component here and why this should be written down and somehow recorded.
Definitely. I know that with so many seniors affected by this, we can't help but talk about college and college orientation and just everything that revolves around them preparing for higher education. So one of the questions was also in regards to going online for orientation, or will the first semester be online? What are you hearing out there right now?
Yeah, so just last night I attended a webinar amongst directors of admissions from various universities. They actually all have agreed that they are going to, they are designing, first of all, online virtual orientations anyway, but they're also planning for online fall semester. And they're going to make a call on this as early as May, end of May, so that people who are going to travel to these campuses, like for move-in day and whatnot, they don't have to do it if it's going to be online. And there are also some colleges like the Grand Canyon University in Arizona. They're proposing 2 tracks for fall semester. One is the virtual online semester, and the other is, if things go back to normal, then we're going to have our regular class selection and programs. So colleges are adapting. They're changing every single day, providing options for the students from an online perspective. They really don't want to do it if they don't have to. They're hoping for the best, but planning for the worst.
Right. I mean, that's really all you can do. You want to plan and prepare ahead. And it seems that some of the colleges that are really empathizing with this group, it's been noted that juniors even, this is still affecting juniors as we get into that part of the conversation a little bit later, but kids who are still trying to choose what college they're going to, and the way the college is dealing with this situation is also changing their minds about certain colleges, right?
Absolutely. In fact, my senior class, who, the class of 2020, who pretty much had a certain list, from top 3 through 10, whatever list they had. And then after they got their decisions, that they're now in the decision phase, they're about to choose which college to go to. They totally changed the list, or the priority list for themselves, because of how the colleges are responding to the COVID-19 crisis. So some colleges, disappointingly, laid off their residence hall staff, dining hall staff, or they did not refund the residential living expenses to students even after they were being evicted. Some international students were told to leave the dorms with only 3-day notice. So these are the kinds of things that these seniors have heard of from colleges. And if that particular college was on their list, they said, you know what, I don't want to be associated with a college that does this to their community. So with that, there's been changes. And in fact, the true colors, the true values and culture of a college really can show themselves here. And it is obvious.
I mean, that's really anyone in any organization in a time of crisis. If you want to know the real colors of someone or something, see how they handle a situation like this.
Absolutely.
So very telling for this group, for sure. And, we're talking a lot about seniors, but juniors are affected right now too. I know you have dealt with a lot of junior anxiety right now at Firat Education.
Yeah, so juniors have a different kind of anxiety here. Class of 2021, I mean, they were in the midst of their SAT, ACT preparation. Some of them had taken the SAT and ACT maybe once, maybe none. So now those tests are canceled. And in the summer, we don't know if they're going to be back yet, even though they look like they're on for now. They are probably going to be canceled in June. And ACT and SAT are both designing at-home online tests just to make it up, and probably even provide make-up dates and locations as well to make up these lost days. But this builds anxiety for the students. SAT and ACT is already nerve-wracking, so
Right.
yet let alone just try to do this online at home. So that's one. The second piece is they're worried about how will the colleges view their applications, given that their school is now potentially gone past fail instead of grades. Now they're remote learning, so their recommendation letters, their APs are online, their SAT and ACT is in a question. So they are worried, and they're admittedly so. So what's coming out of this as a story is, as an opportunity at least, is for them to tell their story through a solid college admissions essay that they have to write anyway this coming summer. And probably there's going to be so many essays written about this anyway. So we're telling these juniors to take time, reflect, write down your thoughts, and even start jotting down some ideas so that you can tell your story. And that could become your college essay.
Definitely. And I know that, you have access to the essays that will be utilized again for these colleges. I know one here specifically, I'll just read it. It's the lessons that we take from obstacles that we encounter can be fundamental to later success. So the essay is asking to recount a time when you faced a challenge, a setback, or a failure, and how did it affect you, and what did you learn from the experience? So you're saying that, I mean, this is obvious, this whole group has had this experience here, but a lot of students are going to be writing about COVID-19. So it's the same here for an essay to a college as it is if you were sending in your manuscript to a publisher, or at the iWRITE organization, sending in your story or your poem for our annual publishing contest. You have to make sure, if you're writing about something that everybody else is writing about, your voice is very, very strong and unique, and you've got to bring in a perspective that the reader of your essay is going to want to keep reading, and to really put yours to the side and say, wow, that student really used their intelligence and their intuition to write something that is powerful and unique to themselves. So,
And I'll back you up with the data from college admissions.
ah,
I mean, this was pre-COVID-19, like not even, COVID-19 related. Um, College admissions have been kind of sick of receiving the same kind of theme or kind of
mhm,
story about how summer camp has changed the students' view on life, or community service has really changed their life. They've seen this story so many times. And on average, college admissions read, or admissions counselors, like per person, read about 3,000 essays per admissions cycle. 3,000.
mhm,
So imagine, after COVID-19, this class of 2021, when they write these essays, 3,000 COVID-19 essays you're going to receive.
mhm.
Okay. So you're going to get tired of it as a reader. Can you imagine the kind of, I guess, depression and, the nervousness, the anxiety that goes into this? And you're trying to distinguish, okay, how is this essay different than this essay? How is this person is different than this person? In college admissions, essays really tell the voice and then the personality of the student beyond the numbers of the GPA and the test scores, and what the story is told through the teachers and counselors. It's their opportunity to tell about themselves. So if you're going to talk about COVID-19, great, mention it maybe like at the beginning, but then quickly switch it over to how this changed you for the better, or how it made you a better person, or how it has led you to explore something new about your life, and quickly focus on that instead of COVID-19 and how it stuck you in the house for months on end. That really doesn't help the admissions. That will not help your admissions
Mhm.
chances either.
And I mean, I'm all about examples. I love giving examples to help people understand what we're talking about here. And Ibrahim, I know that your son is not close to college age, but what y'all are doing at home really was a good example. I would love for everyone to hear
Yeah.
that story.
So our son is 7. He's second grade. He's not. I mean, he loves the iWRITE journal. First of all, like he's actually finished with that thing, and he loves it. He loves I the guy.
Yes.
And when I loses his eye, actually, he's got a really kick out of that. So the thing we're doing with our son is he started like learning about measuring and using math to kind of help. So we brought in baking. So I'm originally from Turkey, so we said, you know what, let's just try baking this Turkish dessert, and let's do it together. So we got the ingredients, measured cups, and actually put it together, created the dough from scratch. He used his hands to all put it together. And actually, when it was done, it was delicious. And he wants to do it again just today. Just this morning, he told me he wants to do it again. This is something we probably would have never done if it wasn't COVID-19, if it wasn't we were stuck at home. We're so busy. We work so much, and he actually, besides going to school, he plays soccer very competitively. So there wouldn't be any time to do this. So here's an opportunity for us to share a story about something he's learned and something he's really excited about.
And who knows what this can turn into as he is really starting to connect to his culture through baking. That could turn
Absolutely.
into something just down the road of interest and communication between the family that sometimes we don't think about or we don't take time. And we want to make sure our young generation is very connected to their culture in the midst of everything we're doing. So, I mean, that right
Absolutely.
there is an example of
Yeah,
how,
it's not just culture. It's multiple things that's happening. It's the skill of baking. It's cultural connections. It's using math and problem solving to create something that will taste good. So you're using multiple avenues and exploring multiple interests, and you're just getting some product that gives you pleasure at the end. So there's so much to tell.
definitely. Ibrahim, can you share with us where students and parents can find more information about the essay prompts?
Absolutely. So there are two main application systems students typically use to apply to college. If they're in Texas, they use Apply Texas application system. ApplyTexas.org will provide them with the college essays that are already posted for the class of 2021. And then if they're applying for colleges that are private or outside of state, they're most likely using Common Application. That is commonapp.org.
Okay, great. And I know that we have a lot of parents listening today, in addition to two high school students. But one thing that we haven't really heard as much about on the news or anywhere is how all of this is affecting parents and, you know, what their kids that really didn't prepare for all of this just out of nowhere. How are parents dealing with it? Have you heard of any concerns or questions that parents have that maybe we haven't really thought about?
So parents, it depends on the age group for the high schoolers, but the senior parents are just disappointed in the whole thing. That's, you know, they've gone through so much and they've obviously lived through everything that I just said about 9/11, Great Recession, Harvey, and then now this. They're probably like, oh my gosh, now this to deal with. Now they're not that much surprised and worried. They're more disappointed than anything else. In terms of growth opportunity, they see big growth opportunity because they lived through these difficult times together with their kids. So not much there, but the parents of juniors, sophomores, and freshmen are actually quite in a big limbo because they really don't know how this whole thing will impact their high school experience and then post-high school experience for college admissions. College admissions will most likely be redesigned after COVID-19 is said and done. Just yesterday, there was an article on Bloomberg and Business Week about thousands of colleges potentially closing down because of financial troubles. And if that happens, imagine we're only left with a select few that everybody attends anyway. And now that drops the percentages down for admissions and increases the competitiveness even more. So there are those concerns. The second concern is still related to the financial aspect. Because of the financial aspect, again, more and more state colleges will be overloaded with students. And if that happens, typically your safety school, in-state school, is not really a safety school anymore. It is actually one of the most competitive schools probably to get into. So those parents are really concerned about, you know, post high school, what's going to happen. Do we follow the traditional 4-year college path? Do we go to 2-year community college and then transfer? Or do we just skip college altogether because, well, it's going to be really expensive anyway. So maybe we just go for trades and getting a job right out of high school. So those are the kinds of questions that those parents are asking.
Yeah, I mean, the unknown of this for every one of us, no matter what industry we're in, what stage of life we're in, we all have this in common. And it's this complete question mark when it comes to what things are going to look like down the road. So we definitely feel for all of the parents that are going through this right now and everyone else. And, you know, one group that we haven't really talked about yet are athletes. Athletes who are counting on a scholarship possibly to get into their college or waiting to hear back. I mean, what does that look like right now?
Yeah, so the NCAA has put together some specific guidelines as to, you know, I guess not easing some of their restrictions on the recruitment process to help with the crisis. So you're not really penalized for not meeting certain requirements, or very strict requirements of NCAA. So if you're an NCAA recruited or athlete, you're registered in high school, really look back on the NCAA website and look at those, I guess, new guidelines, because you still need to meet those new guidelines to be recruited for college. But the second thing you can do is talk to your coach. Talk to your coach at school or at your club, so that you're still aligned with going back to that track of going to NCAA recruited school or college that's been looking at you, and stay in touch with those coaches as well, especially if you've been approached already.
Yeah, I mean, I know the anxiety with that is pretty high. So we all just have to stay on top of just the new information as it comes out, because I'm assuming some of these things can change. So
the more uncertainty there is, and the more like there's no end in sight, the more policy changes will happen as well, especially on the NCAA side, because I mean, kids are just working out at home and they're just trying to stay fit. So especially for an athlete, this is tough. So if it prolongs further, then more changes will happen on the NCAA side. So I highly recommend athletes and parents of athletes to be in touch with NCAA website on a regular basis and subscribe to their mailing list as well. They send updates regularly.
Yes, definitely. I want to make sure that we haven't missed any questions if they're going to start coming in, because we will stay here for a while to answer any of your questions for anyone who's listening. What else do we really need to think about as we go into the summer? And I know you've been very busy, Ibrahim, with what you're doing, working with kids every single day now remotely. What are you all focusing on? Has any of your focus changed now?
Yeah, so at Firat Education, I would say almost 50% of our business is standardized test prep. So for SAT and ACT, and for younger groups as well, for the IC and other tests. But because we, focus so much on the testing, and because of what's going on today, now our focus is shifting more away from the testing and actually identifying the best fit colleges given your situation. So even like, let's say that you're a junior and you cannot really take a test because they're all canceled, then we're looking at options for test optional schools or schools that they don't really want the SAT or ACT score. So we just start the application process for those students actually skipping over to the SAT and ACT completely. But we also get questions from families about what is this test optional thing? Because colleges say pretty much you can submit your SAT score, the ACT scores if you have them. And if you don't have them, we don't care that you don't have them. But because some people are sending and some people are not, then it brings up the question, am I at a disadvantage if I'm not sending the scores because someone else is actually sending the scores? So those are the kinds of fires we're trying to put up, because it's really, really hard questions to answer depending on the institution that we're dealing with.
Yeah, I know that even in elementary school, you're seeing so many things change just daily as all of the schools are trying to figure out what to do with online learning. So it's really, everybody's having to stay flexible, but it has been stressful on parents who are working at home as well. So we'll see some shifts and some changes, I'm sure, in the next few months too.
Absolutely.
And we'll even,
like there's a question on the Q&A under, if you would like to pull that one up. I just saw.
There we go. All right, so we do have a question here about summer camps, which I was just thinking about that because we have a lot that are still open, and we'll see what that looks like. Any recommendations on how to plan summers for high schoolers given this current situation? So I know right now at the iWRITE organization, we have 6 different summer camps that are still open for registration. Most of them are in June, which worries us. We do have a few in July. So we will probably make a decision closer to the middle of May if we move any of our June over to July based off what the situation looks like. I know personally, I've talked to many parents who are hoping that summer camps are in session because they are ready for them. Now, we're also doing a virtual summer camp too, because we want to make sure that that option is there. We were already planning for a virtual summer camp for people that don't live in the Houston area, since we're based here in Houston, to be able to still benefit from everything that we do at the iWRITE organization. We may, on a few of our summer camps that are very specialized to a certain age group, we may have to turn those into additional virtual summer camps. But honestly, we all are really hoping to stay positive and keep our summer camps to make sure that we are following just the best practice. We may limit it to a very small number versus what we would allow with registration. If we would have allowed 15 to 20 kids, we may only allow 10 to 12. That's probably what we'll be looking at. Do you know any summer camps so far, Ibrahim, that are saying we're not going to do this, or?
Yeah, so I was just going to add on to that. So there have been some summer camps hosted by colleges that have been moved to virtual and online settings completely already. So if you've been thinking about sending your child to a career-oriented camp, say at Columbia University in New York, you pretty much received an email that said, yes, we're still gonna host you, but we're gonna host you online at a discounted rate than what you paid for, because that had included some residence fee as well. So you're paying a discounted fee, but you're still getting to go to the summer camp online. So to answer the second part of the question, which is like recommendations on how to plan for high schoolers who may miss their summer camps, from a college admissions standpoint, this is not that big of an issue. So normally college admissions would look very closely in your high school resume to see what you have done in and outside of school. But this year, 2020, and even through 2021, if you cannot participate in some summer camps, or if you participated only virtually, it's not going to be counted against you. So don't stress out about, from a college admissions standpoint, if this is going to hurt your chances, because colleges have already made the commitment. Even the most competitive colleges out there have said, we understand 2020 is a weird year, even 2021, if this thing kind of slowly goes away, we're going to be a little bit more flexible with our requirements.
Definitely. And we'll just, continue to look at all of the summer camp resources out there. I mean, everybody's going to have to start giving their updates on at least when they're going to let you know that summer camps are a go or not. But
one thing I would probably recommend to replace summer camp. So many, like, what if this thing goes through the end of the summer and then we skip summer? I hope not. I really hope not. But let's say that happens. How do you make the best out of your time at home, or, in your home city? Well, one of the things you can do is, actually being creative at home, like with your family, trying out new things and taking new initiatives. So start something brand new. Go help deliver groceries to your neighbor, like who may be looking after a sick person. So do something new that still adds value to who you are and what you can do with your time. So instead of trying to go to a summer camp, and still, if you can go to the summer camp virtually, do it. But you can also add other things to make it worthwhile.
I love that you brought that up, Ibrahim, especially just anything creative. And I can't help but think about some of the stuff that this generation, because we really do feel like we're going back to this old school way of life, right? I mean, just my husband and I, we are looking forward. This sounds ridiculous, but tomorrow we'll be driving to his mom's house, to our son's grandmother's house, to go pick up the Easter basket that will be in the garage. But we're looking forward to getting in our car and just driving around, just
exactly.
That sounds like a very just, old school way of the way the world was. And so going back into kind of that mindset, even the other day, we played cards for the first time since, I don't even think we've played cards ever. And, these are things we started talking about. We really need to start buying board games because we want to make sure that our son has been able to play all of the just foundational games. And I mean, this is a time to start having family board game night. And all the things that we keep hearing, we're just so busy, we're just so fast paced, there's just so much going on. Too bad we can't do the things that we used to do when we were kids. Let's start listing out what all those things were and start bringing it into the life of our families. Because if we can have our major memory of all of this be that year of 2020, our family reconnected on such a different level, it made the rest of your life as a kid in the house so much better. I mean, we just don't know. And I know people don't want to hear, think of the positive, everybody just is, this sucks, right?
I mean, the fact is we hear from parents and students, even high school students, I don't really have any leadership in my resume to showcase in my college applications. What do I do about that? Well, here it is. This is your opportunity to show leadership, right? To create, to take initiative of some sort. Many people think leadership comes with a title of club president or vice president, treasurer of so-and-so club at school that gives them some sort of leadership. No, let's say that you're a high school student and you have a middle school brother who is struggling with math online learning, and you take charge, you help that sibling like every single day until he gets his first 100 on that test. That's leadership. That's what you have to do.
And that's a great story for an essay.
Exactly.
Right? All these things
Absolutely.
that you can do so that you have a unique essay, for sure. I mean, I know that, well, I have another question that had come in on my end. And okay, let's see, there it is. Okay, so from Lisa, how are things looking for 2020 college graduates trying to find a job? Oh, we haven't talked about this during coronavirus, or high schoolers that typically have summer jobs. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll answer like both questions, and then I'll turn it over to you. So the high schoolers that typically have summer jobs, like maybe swim, like you're helping how kids teach swimming, or maybe basketball camp, things that you do with other kids or other organizations. It's very, very tough at this time about what's going to happen with those opportunities, unless they've already let you know that they're doing something virtual, that you can still participate. So one of the things you can do, if you have a relationship with this organization or with this job, reach out to them and say, hey, I was supposed to report to work June 1, but from where things stand, it may not happen. And if it doesn't happen, what are my options? Can I do something virtual that I can still hold my job with you? And that will really go a long way. And then to answer the first question about finding jobs, just I think next week, I think University of Houston is putting together the first virtual job fair for students who are looking for jobs in the summer. And this is going to include some combination of virtual jobs as well as in-person jobs that I think it's worth a shot, worth a try to kind of see what opportunities are out there. So there is going to be more virtual job opportunities coming out of this crisis. So I would see it as a positive and see if that's possible to do even in regular job fairs or job search sites like Indeed. They're going to post more jobs online.
And speaking of just obviously everything being more virtual, everyone has to be virtual now. All of a sudden, if you were an organization that you were like, maybe one day we'll get into the virtual thing. Oh no, the next day we all had to. So for this group who already may be really tech savvy, can put video content together, are able to design great ads and flyers, they may want to start putting together a packaged resume portfolio and start sending it to everybody, because we all need it. So definitely there, and this is something you can do at home remotely. So yeah, definitely. I know that we have another question. What are some resources high schoolers can use at home to build new skills while out of school?
So go ahead, and then I'll go next.
So I know my area of resources is definitely for the younger ones, but I do have opportunities that I would love for our high schoolers to hear about at iWRITE. So all of our high schoolers can enter our annual publishing contest if they like to write short stories and poetry, or they even love to draw. So that is something to also build up their resume as a professionally published author at iWRITE.org. We also, for our high schoolers and middle schoolers, have our iWRITE Youth Club, and an extension of that is our iWriter magazine division. We'll actually be launching our first digital magazine next week, and the whole group has been doing all of their meetings virtually. And because it's turned into a virtual club now, just because, again, we're based in Houston doesn't mean that only Houston kids can get involved. So all you would have to do is send an email to info@iWRITE.org and say that your high schooler is interested in information in the iWriter magazine club, and they can become a columnist. It's a quarterly magazine that goes out by kids for kids. Everything is written by kids, designed by them. We'll be releasing it next week, so definitely get on our mailing list so that you can receive a copy of that. And those are two of the major things that are in the works literally as we speak for high schoolers. Now, I know you have resources for this age group.
Sure.
Ibrahim,
So, actually, besides the resources, it really depends on who the student is, right? So if you have a student who's extremely creative and they're, they design stuff, like even they draw stuff maybe. So this is their opportunity to put together a portfolio, like Melissa just earlier mentioned, and put it on the side, save it on the computer, or just save it as a folder. Have it ready for future reference, because that's something that you can really capitalize on when the college application time comes. The second piece is explore other opportunities. Like, you might be very creative coming up with ideas for a business. This is your opportunity to maybe create a business online that you can start selling products and services for. You can learn about how to start a business just by reading ebooks or reading books, physical books, learning about it, and then actually executing it. And then the next piece is really, if you're into computers, if into video game design, maybe coding. Many students who are interested in, esports and video games that, I know iWRITE is kind of moving them towards actually writing, but this is a skill, potentially a job skill in the future, to design computer games, computer software that could be extremely marketable when the time comes. So these are the kinds of skills that they can use, they can learn, and after they learn it, they master it, they can really showcase it as a leadership component.
and since you brought up video games, I have to chime in on that. Everything in life is a story, including a video game. The people who create video games, sure, you have the coding end of it that you have to be very well versed in, but you also have to be creative enough to come up with the characters and the entire storyline of the video game that the user is experiencing. So, I mean, I'll always find a way to tell people everything we do in life is a story. So
Definitely.
Video games included. We have another question here. Any lessons that rising high schoolers can take from this pandemic experience? Maybe plan to take their standardized tests early, or the fact that 3 months or more could be lost as a surprise. I love that this anonymous person posted this, because sometimes you need other people to tell your kids what they need to learn from certain lessons, because it doesn't always come from the parents quite as well. So
yeah, that happens in our business all the time. I may be saying the same exact thing that their parents have been saying for so long, but they listen to me, but not their parents. So I totally hear you on this. So there are many lessons to learn out of this for eighth graders specifically. It's tough time, especially if they already know which high school they're going to go to. They're probably excited. They're kind of nervous. They're finishing their eighth grade. Hey, they don't get a graduation either. So if they're doing middle school graduation, so think about that. So that's a lesson for them as well. And two, if they really want to learn how this impacts them in the future, they should just look at their older brothers and sisters who are going through this pandemic, like with pass fail, uncertainties about SAT and ACT, uncertainties about the college admissions. So they can say, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a chance to start from fresh, like start on a blank page if I do this right. So that's the message number one you have to give your eighth graders. Say next year is going to be a brand new reset button. We're hitting the reset button next year. So this is your opportunity to start fresh and really showcase your skills, showcase your interests, and target yourself towards college. Now, to answer the second part of this, which is maybe plan to take standardized tests early, I don't recommend that, even though you may want to hear that they really should not. SAT and ACT are specifically designed for juniors, and if not later, because they have not had enough math and enough reading content in to succeed on the reading and math sections. The only really successful section they can produce out of a ninth grader or maybe even 10th grader is the grammar section, but even then that's too risky. So I wouldn't push forward the deadlines just because what's going on.
Yeah, I say the same thing, especially for our elementary students who enter the publishing contest, that the third, fourth graders, it's better for them to write their stories and submit closer to the deadline than early in their academic year, because we know that they are going to learn so much more throughout that year so that they have such a better story by the end of it. So it's kind of the same thing. I know we definitely, it's always good to be early. It is always good to not procrastinate. We're not preaching that, that's for sure. But in certain situations, when you want to make sure you have received everything that you possibly can before you have to put your best foot forward, this is one of those situations.
And standardized testing also burns you out. If you
Oh
start,
gosh, yes.
it starts way too early, like then you're gonna burn out by, beginning of 11th grade, and that's when you should be taking it really. So now you lost your opportunity to peak your highest scores, and that's just unfortunate. That's actually gonna hurt your college admissions chances as well.
I just have a curious question, Ibrahim. How many times have you had to say that to parents
Um,
over the years?
I've said it. I've said it quite a bit. Not
Mhm.
as much as you think, though. Like many
Okay.
parents, I think because of internet, because of the articles that are being circulating, and we deal with an affluent and really educated family base, so they know
Right.
that they shouldn't really be doing this. But at the same time, they're wondering, hey, what if I have a student who's acing everything, like who's really young for his grade, like, and he's still top of his class. So it brings up naturally the question, hey, look, maybe he should do the SAT early and then just get it out the way. It's not a totally wrong question to ask, but then when you bring the scientific evidence and data back into it, then they understand and they go with the regular timeline.
Definitely. Well, I know that we are wrapping up, so I just want to make sure that everybody listening today knows that myself at the iWRITE organization, all of us, and of course, Ibrahim and everyone at Firat Education, we're here for you. We would love to hear from any of you after this conversation. If you have more questions, if you need some resources, this is what we do. And we really do hope that everybody is staying strong throughout all of this, because I just love how you started the story of this group, Ibrahim. They are truly a resilient group of young people, and they have such a unique story from start to finish of their childhood that it deserves to be heard and respected. So we hope that we see some young people publish this story and really get it out there, because no one else has the experience that they do. That's what's so unique to the writer and to the person. So I know that you have just so much support that you give to these kids that you see every day now over the computer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've put together free webinars to just educate the students as well as the families on what's been happening. What does this all mean to you and to your students? We're really like trying to get rid of the misinformation that's been out there about high school students, about testing, about college admissions. We're doing our best. So if anybody wants to join our free webinars, it's on our website, firateducation.com/free webinars. So join us so you can be more educated, more in depth about everything that we talked about today. And most importantly, like Melissa said, take a breather and really focus on what matters, who matters, and really make fun out of it, like make something fun out of it. Because if you write it down and if you really journal it, you'll be surprised 10 years, 20 years down the road, you'll look back, remember this day, and then remember your parents and everybody around you and the kinds of simple things that you've done. You're probably gonna make history at that moment. So really think about that and make the best out of this family time and grow with it.
Definitely. And for anybody that wants to reach out to the iWRITE organization, iWRITE.org, you can find all of the information on our publishing contests and resources. We are taking entries up until May 31st for this next 11th anthology. Your kids could be a professionally published author. And we just want to thank all of you for joining us today, and good luck with everything that you and your kids and students are doing out there. Thank
Good
you.
luck. Take care.